The phone rang at 6:15 on a Tuesday morning in March. I was already awake, staring at the ceiling like I'd done most nights since Janet passed 4 years back. The number on the screen was Vanessa's. My daughter-in-law never called me. "Your son is dead." That's how she said it. No greeting, no softness. Just 4 words delivered in a voice that sounded like she was reading from a script. Car accident on Highway 401. Killed instantly. The funeral is Friday. I'll text you the address. She hung up before I could form words. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. My son Graham was 42 years old. I taught him how to use a level when he was 10. How to read a blueprint at 15. How to bid a job at 23. Now he was gone, and I'd found out through a phone call that lasted less than 30 seconds. The funeral was at a small chapel in Oakville I'd never heard of. I arrived 30 minutes early because that's what you do. Show respect, be present. Vanessa was already there in a black dress with a neckline that didn't seem right for a funeral. The fabric looked expensive. Her makeup was perfect. She saw me walk in and her expression didn't change. Just looked at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered in off the street. I walked toward the casket at the front. My son was in there. I needed to see him. Vanessa stepped between us. "Family first," she said. "I'll let you know when you can view him." I stood there, didn't argue, didn't push past her, just stepped back and found a seat in the 4th row. Nobody sat near me. The service started 20 minutes later, maybe 30 people in attendance. Vanessa gave the eulogy. She described Graham as a troubled man who struggled with business failures and self-doubt. Said he worked too much trying to prove something to himself. Mentioned me once. Graham's father wasn't much involved in his adult life. I gripped the pew in front of me, said nothing. After the service, people lined up to offer Vanessa condolences. She worked the line like a politician, accepting sympathy, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I stood off to the side near the doorway. A few people nodded at me. Nobody came over to talk. I was a stranger at my own son's funeral. The parking lot was nearly empty when Vanessa finally approached me. She wasn't crying anymore. Her voice was different now, quieter, almost confidential. "I need to be honest with you, Leonard. Graham died broke. The business failed 2 years ago. He was too proud to tell anyone." She paused. "Let that sink in. I'm drowning in debt. The funeral alone cost $8,000 I don't have. I was hoping, since you're his father, maybe you could help with costs." I stood in that parking lot trying to process what Vanessa had just said. $8,000. My son died broke. The business failed. I was opening my mouth to respond when a man in a dark suit approached from across the lot. "Raymond Torres," he said, extending his hand. "Graham's business partner." I shook it. His grip was firm, respectful. Vanessa's face changed when she saw him, just for a second. Something flickered in her eyes that looked like fear. Raymond nodded at her politely but didn't smile. "Leonard, I'm very sorry for your loss. I need to speak with you, privately. Would you have time tomorrow?" Before I could answer, Vanessa touched my arm. "Don't listen to anything Raymond tells you. He and Graham had a falling out. Raymond's trying to claim Graham owed him money from the business." She squeezed my sleeve. "We're family, Leonard. It's you and me now. We need to stick together." I looked at her hand on my arm, looked at her face. Something in her expression didn't match her words. "Tomorrow works," I told Raymond. The next morning I met Raymond at a Tim Hortons off Highway 7. He was already there when I arrived, 2 coffees on the table. He'd ordered mine black without asking. Somehow he knew. We sat in a corner, booth away from the other customers. Raymond slid a manila folder across the table. His hands were steady, but his jaw was tight. "Graham was my best friend for 12 years, he said. "I need you to know he didn't die broke. He died rich." He opened the folder. Inside were papers I didn't understand at first. Business financial statements. Numbers that didn't make sense. Revenue $1.8 million last year. Net profit $470,000. Asset valuation $3.2 million. I stared at the numbers. Raymond pulled out another document. Life insurance policy. $2 million. Beneficiary Leonard Blackwood. Date of change November 15th. 6 months ago. Why didn't he tell me? My voice came out rough. Raymond looked uncomfortable. He planned to. He came to the office the morning he died. Said he was driving to your place that evening to explain everything. He never made it. The coffee in front of me had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. "There's more," Raymond said. He slid another folder across the table. Graham knew about Vanessa and Derek Morrison, the real estate developer. He hired a private investigator. Inside were photographs. Vanessa and a man I didn't recognize. Hotels, restaurants, his hand on her back, her laughing at something he said. Bank records showing money transfers, text messages. I read one of the messages. "Vanessa to this Derek. Graham works 70 hours a week. He'll probably have a heart attack before he's 50, then we won't have to wait." My hands started shaking. I set the papers down. Raymond explained the rest. Graham had created a new will 6 months ago, left the business to Raymond and me as equal partners, put money in a trust for his kids that Vanessa couldn't touch. The will Vanessa showed me was 3 years old, real but outdated. Graham's attorney, Julia Carrington, had the new one. Vanessa didn't know it existed. She's been draining the business accounts, Raymond said, since Graham died. She's taken about $200,000 so far. She thinks she's going to inherit everything. He slid a business card across the table. Julia's been trying to reach you. Vanessa told her you declined to participate in estate administration. I looked at the card, at the folders. At Raymond's face, he'd loved Graham too. I could see it in his eyes. What do I need to do? I asked. Raymond leaned back. Tell the truth. Let Julia handle the legal part. And don't let Vanessa know you know anything. Not yet. Monday morning, I sat in Julia Carrington's office on the 3rd floor of a building downtown. The walls were lined with law books. Her desk was organized in a way that reminded me of Graham. Everything had its place. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, sharp gray suit, sharper eyes. Mr. Blackwood, I've been trying to reach you for 5 days. I explained what Vanessa told her, that I declined to participate. Julia's jaw tightened. I was calling about your inheritance. Graham left you as executor of his estate and primary beneficiary of his life insurance policy. You also inherit 50% ownership of Blackwood and Torres Construction. She slid a document across the desk. Graham's will, dated November 20th of last year, notarized, witnessed by 2 people I didn't know. I read my son's wishes written in legal language that made them feel distant and cold, but the meaning was clear. The business to Leonard and Raymond, the life insurance to Leonard, a trust for the children with Leonard and Raymond as co-trustees. Vanessa received the house they lived in and her vehicle, nothing else. Why did he cut her out? I asked. Julia folded her hands on the desk. He discovered her affair 6 months ago, hired a private investigator. Graham came to me with evidence and asked me to help him protect his assets and his children. He said, and I quote, Vanessa can't be trusted with money or responsibility. She opened another folder. Inside were documents establishing a trust for Emma and Tyler, $800,000 from business assets. The trust would provide for education, health care, basic needs, but Vanessa couldn't access the principal. The children would receive full control at age 25. This protects them, Julia said, from their mother's decisions. What about the money Vanessa's been taking? Julia's expression darkened. She's withdrawn $275,000 from business accounts since Graham's death. She used his death certificate to access accounts she had signature authority on. Technically fraud, since she's not the legal beneficiary. I've filed paperwork to freeze the remaining accounts, but she moved fast. Can we get it back? We can. But it requires filing criminal charges. Felony theft and fraud. I thought about that. About my grandchildren watching their mother get arrested. About Emma, who was 11, and Tyler, who was 8, and what that would do to them. Do what needs to be done, I said. That afternoon, Raymond picked me up and drove me to Blackwood and Torres Construction. I hadn't been to Graham's workplace in years. Maybe 3 years, maybe more. I'd stopped by occasionally when Graham first started the business, but then life got busy and Janet got sick and the visits tapered off. The building was impressive. 4,000 square feet of office space, 12,000 square feet of warehouse and workshop. The parking lot had 15 company trucks, all white with green lettering. Blackwood and Torres Construction. My son's name on every vehicle. Raymond walked me through the office first. Introduced me to the staff. 3 women working in administration. A project manager named Lewis. An estimator named Sarah. They all looked sad when they saw me. A few of them had tears in their eyes. We loved Graham, Sarah said quietly. He was a good boss, fair, honest. Did Vanessa come around much? I asked. Sarah glanced at Raymond, then back at me. Not really. Maybe twice a year. She said Graham's work was beneath her, that he should be in real estate development instead of getting dirty with contractors. The workshop was even more impressive. Equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tables, saws, planers, routers, welding equipment, everything organized and maintained. I ran my hand along a workbench. Remembered teaching Graham how to keep his tools clean, how to sharpen a chisel, how to respect the equipment that made your living. 8 full-time employees worked in the shop and field. Raymond introduced me to each one. They shook my hand, told me stories about Graham, how he'd work alongside them on tough jobs, how he never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself, how he'd bought pizza every Friday and knew all their kids' names. Raymond took me to Graham's private office. It was small. Neat, a desk, filing cabinets, a bookshelf with construction manuals and family photos. One photo showed Graham with Emma and Tyler at the beach. They were younger, maybe 5 and 2. All 3 of them were laughing. I sat in Graham's chair. It felt wrong. Raymond opened a locked drawer with a key Julia had given him. Inside were folders, thick folders. He laid them on the desk one by one. The first folder contained the private investigator's report, dated 3 days before Graham died. Pages of surveillance logs, photographs of Vanessa and Derek Morrison at restaurants, hotels, his condo in downtown Toronto. Bank statements showing Vanessa had opened accounts in her name only and was transferring money Graham didn't know about. Or maybe he did know. Maybe that's why he hired the investigator. The text messages were the worst, printed out. Dated, Vanessa to Derek, another late night at the office. He cares more about his business than his family. Derek to Vanessa, you deserve better, someone who puts you first. Vanessa to Derek, when this is over we can finally be together. And then the one that made my stomach turn. Vanessa to Derek, Graham works himself to death. 70 hours a week, high blood pressure. His doctor told him to slow down. He won't listen. Maybe nature will solve our problem for us. I set the papers down, looked at Raymond. Did she know? Raymond said quickly. The accident was investigated. Black ice on the highway. 3 other cars were involved. It was just an accident, bad timing, bad luck, but she was hoping for it. Raymond didn't answer, didn't need to. The second folder contained Graham's financial documentation, proof that he'd protected the business assets, proof that he'd changed beneficiaries on everything, proof that he'd created the trust for the kids. Every document was organized chronologically. Every transaction was recorded. My son had been meticulous. At the bottom of the drawer was an envelope, my name on the front in Graham's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. Dad, if you're reading this, something happened to me. I should have told you in person. I'm sorry I didn't. Vanessa isn't who I thought she was. Neither is our marriage. I'm fixing it the only way I know how, protecting the kids and protecting what I built. The business is yours now. Raymond will help you. Don't let Vanessa take what doesn't belong to her. I love you. I should have said that more. Graham, I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, sat there in my son's office chair with my son's words in my hands and my son in the ground, and nothing I could do to change any of it. Raymond stood by the door, giving me space. After a while, he spoke quietly. Julia needs you to contest Vanessa's petition. She filed paperwork 3 days ago to probate the old will. Claims the new will is invalid because you and I manipulated Graham. Court hearing is in 9 days. I looked up. What do we need to do? Tell the truth. Show the evidence. Let the judge decide. Over the next week I worked with Julia and Raymond every day. We compiled everything. Financial records showing Vanessa's theft, the investigator's report on the affair, Graham's documentation, witness statements from employees who'd heard Vanessa dismiss Graham's work, text messages Graham had recovered from their shared phone account. The case was solid, detailed, undeniable. Vanessa called me twice during that week. First time she asked about funeral reimbursement again. Said she needed $12,000 now, not 8. The bills kept coming. Could I help family? I told her I needed time to figure things out. Second call came 3 days before the hearing. Her voice was different, harder. Time's up, Leonard. I need that money. Graham would want you to help. He was your son. I'll see what I can do, I said. I didn't tell her I'd already seen her text messages. Already knew about Derek Morrison. Already knew she'd stolen nearly $300,000. Already knew Graham had protected everything from her. She had no idea what was coming. The family court building was gray concrete and glass, 9 stories, built in the 1990s when everything was built to look efficient instead of welcoming. I walked through the metal detector at 8:30 on a Thursday morning. Raymond met me in the lobby. Julia was already upstairs reviewing documents. Courtroom 307, 3rd floor. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and anxiety. Vanessa was already there when we walked in. She sat at the plaintiff's table with her attorney, a man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost $3,000, slick back hair. Gold watch, the kind of lawyer you hire when you think you're going to win big. Vanessa saw me and smiled, actually smiled, like we were on the same team, like she hadn't told me my son died broke and asked me to pay for his funeral. She was wearing navy blue, conservative, the grieving widow playing her part. I sat at the defendant's table with Julia and Raymond. The courtroom had maybe 20 people in the gallery. I recognized a few employees from Blackwood and Tours, a neighbor of Graham and Vanessa's, some people I didn't know. All rise. Judge Patricia Hoffman entered, late 50s, no-nonsense expression. She'd been on the bench for 16 years according to Julia, knew estate law inside and out, didn't tolerate games. We sat. The judge reviewed the case file for what felt like 10 minutes but was probably 3. This is a petition to probate the last will and testament of Graham Edward Blackwood, deceased March 8th of this year. Mrs. Vanessa Blackwood seeks to validate a will dated March 2nd, 3 years ago. Mr. Leonard Blackwood contests this petition and presents an alternative will dated November 20th of last year. She looked up. Both sides ready, we were. Vanessa's attorney stood first. His name was Preston Clark. He spoke like he was performing for a larger audience. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. Mrs. Vanessa Blackwood was married to the deceased for 12 years, mother of his 2 children. The will she presents was executed properly, witnessed appropriately, and clearly reflects Mr. Graham Blackwood's wishes at the time of creation. The alternative will presented by the contestant was executed during a period when Mr. Blackwood was under significant emotional distress and undue influence from his business partner, Mr. Raymond Torres, who stood to gain financially from Mr. Blackwood's death. He called his first witness, a woman named Diane Something, friend of Vanessa's. She testified that Graham and Vanessa had a loving marriage, that Graham adored his wife, that Graham spoke highly of Vanessa's intelligence and support. Julia didn't cross-examine, just let it sit there. Preston called a second witness, Graham's former college roommate, testified that Graham always said he wanted Vanessa to be taken care of if anything happened to him. That family was everything to Graham. Again, Julia didn't challenge it. Preston introduced the 3-year-old will, went through it line by line, everything to Vanessa except specific bequests to the children, signed, notarized, witnessed by 2 people who testified they watched Graham sign it voluntarily. Your Honor, this is clearly the valid will of Graham Blackwood. The later will is suspect in timing, coming as it did during a period of marital difficulty and business pressure. We ask the court to validate the earlier will and dismiss the contest. He sat down looking satisfied. Judge Hoffman looked at Julia. Miss Carrington, Julia stood. She was calm, methodical. She reminded me of a surgeon I'd met once when Janet was sick, someone who did difficult work without drama. Your Honor, I represent Mr. Leonard Blackwood, father of the deceased. I also represented Graham Blackwood in his estate planning. I prepared both wills. I can testify to the circumstances of each. She approached the bench with a folder. May I be sworn in as a witness? The judge allowed it. Julia was sworn in. She testified that Graham came to her office on November 15th of last year, that he was calm, clear-minded, and specific about his wishes, that he provided documentation of changed circumstances in his marriage, that he requested a new will to protect his business assets and his children. Preston objected. Hearsay. Speculation about client's mental state. Judge Hoffman overruled. Attorney observations of client competency are admissible. Julia continued. She introduced the November 20th will, properly executed, properly witnessed, filed with her office and with the Ontario court 6 months before Graham's death. This is the valid will, Your Honor. It supersedes all prior wills as clearly stated in the document itself. Preston stood. Your Honor, the timing is suspect. Mr. Blackwood changed his will during a difficult period. The changes benefit his business partner substantially. We believe Mr. Torres manipulated Mr. Blackwood during a vulnerable time. Julia didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. Your Honor, I'd like to call Mr. Raymond Torres to testify about the circumstances. Raymond was sworn in. He explained how Graham came to him 6 months ago, how Graham showed him evidence of Vanessa's affair, how Graham asked for Raymond's help in protecting the business and the children, but that the decision to change the will was entirely Graham's. Preston cross-examined, tried to suggest Raymond had pressured Graham. Raymond stayed calm, answered every question directly, made it clear Graham had made his own choices. Then Julia introduced the private investigator's report. Your Honor, the reason Mr. Graham Blackwood changed his will was not business pressure or manipulation. It was discovery of his wife's infidelity and financial misconduct. She handed copies to the judge and to Preston. Preston's face changed as he read the first page. He turned to Vanessa. She was staring at the table. Julia continued. The report includes surveillance photographs, financial records, and recovered text messages documenting Mrs. Vanessa Blackwood's affair with Mr. Derek Morrison, a real estate developer. It also documents Mrs. Blackwood's transfers of marital funds to accounts in her name only. The courtroom was silent. Julia walked to the projector. May I? The judge nodded. The photographs appeared on the screen. Vanessa and Derek Morrison at a restaurant, at a hotel, outside his condo building, timestamps on each photo. Dates spanning 4 months before Graham changed his will. Julia moved to the next slide. Bank records. Transfers from joint accounts to Vanessa's personal account. $40,000, $60,000, $25,000. Dates highlighted, all while Graham was alive. She moved to the text messages. Read them aloud. Graham works himself to death. 70 hours a week, high blood pressure. His doctor told him to slow down. He won't listen. Maybe nature will solve our problem for us. I watched Vanessa's face. She was pale. Her hands were shaking. Julia continued without pause. Your Honor, I'd also like to introduce evidence of Mrs. Blackwood's conduct after Mr. Graham Blackwood's death. She distributed another document, bank statements from business accounts. Withdrawals totaling $275,000, all made by Vanessa in the 8 days following Graham's death, all deposited into her personal account. Mrs. Blackwood used her signature authority on business accounts to withdraw funds she had no legal right to access. She did this knowing she was not the beneficiary of the estate. This constitutes felony theft and fraud. Preston was on his feet. Your Honor, those accounts had Mrs. Blackwood's name on them. She had every right. Julia cut him off. She had signature authority as a courtesy while her husband was alive. Upon his death, that authority terminated. She used his death certificate to access funds that legally belonged to the estate. That's fraud. Judge Hoffman looked at Vanessa. Mrs. Blackwood, do you have an explanation for these withdrawals? Vanessa stood slowly. Her voice was shaking. The money was for bills, for the funeral, for the children. I didn't know about the new will. I thought everything was mine. I was just paying expenses. Julia remained standing. Your Honor, the funeral cost $8,000 as documented by the funeral home receipt. Mrs. Blackwood withdrew $275,000. Where did the rest go? Vanessa didn't answer. Julia produced one more document. Bank records showing Vanessa deposited most of the money into an account she shared with Derek Morrison. An account opened 4 months before Graham died. Judge Hoffman reviewed the documents for a long time. The courtroom stayed silent. I could hear people breathing, could hear the ventilation system humming, could hear my own heartbeat. Finally, the judge spoke. I find the will dated November 20th to be valid and properly executed. It supersedes the earlier will dated March 2nd, 3 years prior. Mr. Leonard Blackwood is confirmed as executor. The estate distribution will follow the terms of the November 20th will. She looked at Vanessa. Mrs. Blackwood, I am referring the evidence of post-death withdrawals to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. This hearing is adjourned. Vanessa stood up. She wasn't crying, she was screaming. That money is mine. I was his wife. I gave him 12 years. I gave him children. The bailiff moved toward her. Preston grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back down. But she wasn't done. You think Graham was some kind of saint. He ignored me. He worked 70 hours a week. I was alone. Derek actually paid attention to me. The courtroom was frozen. Even the judge looked stunned. Mrs. Blackwood, you need to sit down, Judge Hoffman said. Vanessa finally collapsed into her chair, put her face in her hands. Preston was whispering urgently to her, but she wasn't listening. Judge Hoffman looked at me. Mr. Blackwood, do you wish to make a statement? I stood, looked at Vanessa, at the woman my son married, the mother of my grandchildren. The person who told me Graham died broke. At the funeral, you told me Graham failed. You said he died penniless. You asked me to pay to bury my own son. You wore an $800 dress and called him a failure. My voice was steady. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Graham built a $3 million company. He was smarter than either of us gave him credit for. He knew what you were doing. He protected his children from you. I'm just here to finish what he started. I sat down. The judge gathered her papers. This court is adjourned. I walked out of the courtroom, didn't look back at Vanessa. Didn't need to. Raymond followed me into the hallway. The marble floors echoed with footsteps. People were staring. I didn't care. Raymond touched my shoulder. That took courage. I shook my head. It was just the truth. We walked out of the courthouse into cold March sunshine. Spring coming, but not here yet. Everything still gray and waiting. 2 weeks after the court hearing, the district attorney filed formal charges: felony theft, fraud, embezzlement from an estate. The charges came with a maximum sentence of 7 years in prison. Bail was set at $50,000. Derek Morrison posted it. I found out later he used money from a line of credit against his condo. Vanessa was released the same day she was arrested. The local paper ran the story on page 3. Widow accused of stealing from deceased husband's estate. They included Vanessa's booking photo. She looked older in it, smaller somehow. The story spread through their suburban community like water finding cracks. Emma's school was the first place I heard about it. I'd started picking the kids up on Fridays for weekend visits. Julia had negotiated temporary custody arrangements while the criminal case proceeded. When I arrived that first Friday, 3 mothers were standing in the pickup line talking. They stopped when they saw me. One of them nodded. Another said she was sorry for my loss. The third just stared. Inside, Emma's teacher pulled me aside. Mrs. Patterson. She taught Emma since 3rd grade. Mr. Blackwood, I want you to know Emma is welcome here. No matter what's happening with her mother, Emma is a good child. This isn't her fault. I know that, I said. Some parents don't see it that way. That weekend, Emma asked me why kids at school were being mean. Why Sophia's mom wouldn't let Sophia come over anymore. Why her teacher kept asking if she was okay. I didn't know how to answer. Settled on, your mom made some mistakes. Adults sometimes do things that hurt other people. The kids at school are confused. Is mom going to jail? I don't know. Tyler was too young to understand most of it. He just knew mom cried a lot now, that grandpa picked them up more, that their house felt different. Vanessa called me 3 times over the following month. I didn't answer. Let them go to voicemail. Listened to each message once, then deleted it. First message, her voice was angry, sharp. You did this, Leonard. You turned Graham against me. You're trying to take my children. I'll fight you. I'll prove you manipulated him. Second message, crying, apologizing, saying she made mistakes but she was still the children's mother. She loved them. Couldn't I see that? Couldn't we work something out? Please, Leonard, please. Third message, desperate, rambling. She needed money. Derek had left. The legal bills were crushing her. Could Leonard consider dropping the charges if she returned what was left of the money? She'd do anything, sign anything, just please. I didn't call back. Julia handled all communication. Derek Morrison disappeared 6 weeks after the court hearing. Took a job with a development company in Vancouver, 3,000 miles away, packed up his condo and left without telling Vanessa. She found out through Facebook, saw his relationship status change from in a relationship to nothing at all. Raymond's wife told me Vanessa had called their house looking for Raymond, trying to get my number. She'd been incoherent, crying about Derek leaving, about being alone, about losing everything. He left me, she kept saying. He said he loved me, he left me. Raymond had been kind but firm. Told her she'd made choices, told her those choices had consequences, told her she needed to focus on being a mother to her children and let the legal process run its course. The business continued without disruption. Raymond managed day-to-day operations. I came in 3 mornings a week to review finances, meet with clients occasionally, learn the systems Graham had built. The crew respected the arrangement. Several of them told me it felt right having a Blackwood still involved, that Graham would have wanted it this way. We had our best quarter in company history that spring, $1.9 million in new contracts. The reputation Graham built held strong. Clients trusted Blackwood and tours, trusted that quality wouldn't change just because Graham was gone. Vanessa's life contracted in opposite proportion. At a school concert in May, I watched her sit alone in the back row. Other parents whispered when she walked in. Nobody saved her a seat. After the concert, Emma ran to me first, hugged me, then went to her mother almost as an afterthought. Tyler did the same. I saw Vanessa's face when it happened, saw her realize she was losing more than money. The plea deal came in June. Vanessa's attorney negotiated it over 3 weeks, returned $190,000. That was all she had left of the money she'd stolen. The rest had gone to legal fees, to Derek, to trying to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford. Plead guilty to a reduced charge of felony fraud, 5 years probation, 200 hours community service. No jail time if she complied with all terms. The alternative was trial, 3 felony counts, likely prison time. Her attorney was honest with her about the odds. Leonard agreed to the deal on one condition. Vanessa had to sign a custody agreement allowing him and Raymond to make decisions about the children's education, health care, and welfare. She'd retain physical custody but with significant oversight. She signed. By July, Vanessa had sold the house, couldn't afford the mortgage without Graham's income. The market was good. She cleared $60,000 after paying off the loan, moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex near the highway, got a job as a receptionist at a dental office, $22 an hour, benefits after 90 days. Her parents helped with first and last month's rent, but they didn't come visit. Her mother called once. I heard about it from Emma. Grandma said they were disappointed, said they'd raised her better, said she'd embarrassed the family. Vanessa stopped wearing designer clothes, stopped getting her hair done at expensive salons, started shopping at discount stores. The transformation was visible. Emma noticed it too, mentioned that mom looked tired all the time, that their new apartment was smaller than her bedroom used to be. I didn't feel satisfaction watching it happen, just a kind of sad recognition that actions have weight, that choices compound. That Graham had known exactly what he was doing when he changed that will. 6 months after the plea deal, I was in the Blackwood and Torres workshop showing Tyler how to use a miter saw. He was 9 now, old enough to learn. I guided his hands through the measurement, watched him concentrate on getting the angle right. He had Graham's focus, that same intensity when working with tools. Emma sat in the office with Raymond's wife learning QuickBooks. She was good with numbers, asked questions about profit margins and overhead costs, 12 years old and already thinking like a business person. Vanessa had asked to meet me the week before, said she needed to talk. I agreed but brought Julia as a witness. We met at a coffee shop in Mississauga. Vanessa looked different, thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a sweater from the Gap, no jewelry except her wedding ring. She still wore it. She apologized, said sorry wasn't enough but it was all she had, explained she'd been drowning in a marriage that felt like loneliness, made terrible choices, destroyed everything. I know that, she said. I know what I did. I listened, said nothing. The kids are all I have left. Her voice cracked. I'm a good mother, Leonard. Whatever else I did wrong, I love them. I believed her on that point, could see it was true despite everything else. We worked out a formal arrangement through Julia. Emma and Tyler lived with Vanessa during the school year. I had them every weekend and all school breaks. Holidays we split. Vanessa agreed to continue therapy. I funded it through the Children's Trust. Investing in their mother's mental health meant investing in them. It wasn't forgiveness. It was practicality. I'd used part of the $2 million life insurance to pay off business debt, invested another portion for retirement, set aside funds for Emma and Tyler's future education. The rest went into a scholarship fund at the local trade school, Graham Blackwood Memorial Scholarship for Construction Trades. First recipient was a 19-year-old kid from a single-parent home who wanted to be a carpenter. One evening, closing up the workshop, Raymond said Graham would be proud of how I'd handled everything. I didn't do anything special, I told him, just told the truth. Raymond smiled slightly. That's exactly what Graham would have said. I'd framed Graham's letter, hung it in my home office, read it sometimes when I missed him, which was every day but some days worse than others. The part that stayed with me, I should have said that more. Love, we'd never been good at saying it. Showed it through work, through teaching, through time together, but never said it enough. I visited Graham's grave every Sunday, brought fresh flowers Janet would have liked, told him about the business, about Emma and Tyler, about the scholarship fund. Talked to the headstone like he could hear. Maybe he could, I hoped so. This wasn't the retirement I'd imagined. My wife gone, my son gone, running a construction business at 71, raising grandchildren part-time. But sitting in that workshop with Tyler, teaching him what Graham taught me, passing knowledge through generations, there was something right about it, something that made the rest bearable. If you're watching this and you've ever been lied to at a funeral, told your loved one died with nothing when they actually died rich, or discovered family isn't always who you thought, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to be the executor when someone tried to steal what wasn't theirs? Sometimes the people closest to us are strangers. Sometimes the hardest battles are with people who should be on your side. And sometimes the only thing you can do is tell the truth and let the consequences fall where they may. Until next time, remember, dignity isn't something people can take from you. It's something you choose to keep.